what does it actually mean when clinicians talk about negative symptoms of mental health? Aren't most symptoms probably a bad thing? So in this video, you'll learn the difference between positive and negative symptoms. And for the purposes of this lecture, I'm mainly focusing on schizophrenia, but it may appear in other disorders like schizophreniform. So you might be wondering, well, positive means good and negative means bad, right? Not in this case when we're talking about negative and positive symptoms in schizophrenia, for example. Rather, you can think of positive as you're adding something that shouldn't be there. There's an additional symptom that's causing a problem. Whereas negative symptoms is something that we want to see is missing. There's something that's gone, and that's the problem. So in more fun examples, I would say that a positive symptom might be bees in my attic. If I have an infestation of bees, that's something that shouldn't be there, that's there, and that's something that I want to address. Versus a negative symptom might be a heartbreak. If you're grieving somebody, you're missing something that you want to be there and it's gone, and that's a negative symptom. The DSM mainly talks about negative symptoms for schizophrenia, so I'm going to explain both because I think that that will make the negative make a little bit more sense. So examples with schizophrenia specifically, again, thinking of positive like plus. Positive means you're adding something and that there's a symptom present that you wouldn't expect in the general population, while negative means that there's something missing. So positive examples would be delusions, hallucinations, or disorganized speech. I'm going to go through these briefly just to show how they're positive symptoms. So you're probably aware that delusions are fixed beliefs that don't change in light of conflicting evidence. It's a false belief in something. So having that belief is something that is there that, quote, shouldn't be there in a healthy person. Similarly, hallucinations, these are perceptions without an obvious external source. So it could be visual, seeing things, hearing things, auditory, or even olfactory, smell, or sensory, feeling things. And again, that's something that's there that you wouldn't expect to see with most people. And then disorganized speech or disorganized thinking. So this could include derailment, loose associations, word salad, things like that. So that's a way of speaking that's there that shouldn't be. That's why it's a positive symptom. And these three, of course, are the hallmarks of schizophrenia, and you need at least one of these in order to get the diagnosis. So you have to have at least one of these positive symptoms. But the diagnostic criteria also talks about a few other things, including negative symptoms. So here are some negative symptoms. These are things that stop happening, and that's the problem, including diminished emotional expression. So think of like a flat affect. Lack of personal hygiene, which can actually be one of the first signs of schizophrenia emerging. And then all of the A's. So I have a memory tip here that you think about negative, that has an A in it, is a lot of the A terms, whereas positive doesn't have an A in it. So if we think about Latin roots to everything, A generally means without. It's like asexual. So A is a good clue that you're without something, something's missing, again, showing the negative. So avolition is a lack of motivation. Alogia is diminished speech, be kind of brief, less spontaneous, kind of curt way of talking, or also known as a poverty of speech. Again, poverty implies you're without something, you're lacking. So again, negative is pretty intuitive there. Aphasia, this is not so much for schizophrenia, but just another example of a symptom that could be categorized as negative. Aphasia is a loss of language skills, usually more associated with brain damage or the aftermath of a stroke. And then we have anhedonia. And I'll let you consider what you think that might mean if you don't know already. What is hedonism? Hedonism is pleasure seeking. So anhedonia is a decreased ability to experience pleasure, not getting the same enjoyment that you got out of other things. This is also often very associated with depression. And then asociality. So remember, all those A's often go with negative symptoms. If this was helpful, you can check out some other playlists. I have a clinical social work playlist as well as a licensing exam prep study playlist. So if you found it helpful, like and share, and I wish you success in your practice and studying.